So, one of the most important things that are happening nowadays, especially when kids are coming back from school, is seeing how we can have successful conversations with our teens. You see, so many times people want to be able to have that relationship with their child, but they just don't know what it is that needs to be done. They don't know the strategies, they don't know the tips, they don't know how it is that they can actually cultivate this relationship with their teen. And we have to start to figure out what is that we can start to do. And unfortunately, if you're just coming now while your teen might need you, it might be a little too late to really build it the way it needs to be built. But guess what? We're going to have hopefully our whole lives to be really working on this. And we need the ability to really start to cultivate the relationship. And it really starts with so many different areas, but we're going to delve into a couple of areas today in terms of what we can start to do to really figure out how we can have that relationship with our kid. Because at the end of the day, everybody knows if you're trying to have a relationship with somebody, it could be your kid, it could be your spouse, your coworker, and it's not going well, it usually drains you so much in all other areas of your life. And it could be so beneficial to just work on those relationships in order to allow ourselves just to be free from the handicaps and the chains of really doing so much more. And if we can start to recognize that, I really believe we can start to have better lives overall. And some of these tips apply to teens, some of them apply to all relationships. But what are the things we can start to do? And Stephen Covey talks about the emotional bank that a lot of people have with other people, meaning we all have this bank in terms of our emotions, connections with other people. And if we could constantly be putting more emotions into this bank, then we'll be able to build the relationships a lot deeper and we'll be able to get through a lot more. So when things are great, things are going to soar. And when things don't go so great, then we have the ability to recover and to apologize and to fix things. And we have to realize that we all have this ability, but it just takes time. So that's what we have to start doing. We have to start building this bank up of emotions with other people, the people that we love, and the people that we care with, the people that we're just working with, in order to really accomplish all the things that we're looking to accomplish. And if we have this ability, then we'll really be able to take these relationships to the next level. And it's so important because I think so many people just assume that these things should happen. I should have a good relationship with my spouse or my child. They're my child and they're my spouse, but they don't really recognize the hard work that's necessary to go into these relationships. If we could start to realize that it really does take time, it takes effort, it takes thought, then we can start to really cultivate these relationships, because so many times people just seem to think that it's just going to happen, or I did X, Y, and Z. And they're playing this game of really seeing how it is that, you know what, I did X, Y, and Z. Why aren't they appreciating it? Why aren't they doing all these other things for me when I do all these things for them? And if you're having this transaction type of relationship, it's not going to work. And in an ideal sense, it shouldn't be I do this and you do that, and that's how we work. That may be work in business and with a business partner, but probably even won't be so beneficial there. But recognize that we're in this collectively together. We want to have a relationship. That's the end, and that's the point of this connection we have going on here. And if you can start to figure out what are those different pieces that need to be doing, and it's not writing down everything that I've done and everything that you've done and seeing if they're added up. It's collectively as a team, what is going on, and are we moving in the same direction? Do we want to be doing the same things? And I think if we could start to recognize that, I really think we could start to really have these relationships. And it's one of the things I work on with the teens, because, you know, I have the blessing of seeing both sides of it. I speak to the parents, I speak to the teens, and I really speak to both sides, and I see both sides of the coin. And it's not always the parents' fault. Like, the teens sometimes have to grow up and they have to get their expectations right. But as the adult, we have to come and see what is it we can do. How can we come into the relationship? How can we make it happen? And sometimes our egos get put into the situation. And if we could take our egos out of it, then we'll be able to really work on the relationship. And I think it's so key that we have to realize that we have to be the ones to initiate. We have to be the ones to really put ourselves out there to grow this relationship if we think it's important to us. And most of the times, probably every time, honestly, it's going to be more important for us as the parents to build this relationship, because as a kid, they think they know everything. They don't necessarily want that relationship. They don't know the importance of it. They don't know how important it is to have that guidance and that support. And really, sometimes you just can't express themselves. And we have to understand and realize that from the kids that we have, and who the people that we are that we're working with. And if we could start to recognize that and realize that, then we can really start to really grow the relationships. And I think there's a bunch of different keys that we can start to work on. But the first place we need to be working on, I really believe, is keeping commitments. You see, so many times people will come into a relationship and they'll say they'll do X, Y, and Z, and then they won't do it. And then the first time it's like, okay, you know what, that person had that thing happen. And then they'll come in and say, oh, I'll do X, Y, and Z. And then it happens, something else happens. And another thing, and another thing. And then the commitments that they're doing aren't actually working because they're not keeping what it is that they said that they would be doing. And as a child, there's so many less commitments that we actually have in order to make those things happen. So therefore, if we have the ability to be working on something, if we have the ability to really say we're going to do something, if we don't do that thing as a child, if you cut that, if you don't do it, you only have like a handful of chances. As an adult, you can make more excuses, you can be more reasonable, you can say, hey, that happened and this happened. But as a child, there aren't so many chances that you really have to really cultivate and really make that relationship and tie that relationship. And we can apologize and we can grow it. And the more emotional bank we have, and the more times that we did keep our commitments. So when things do happen, because life does happen, it doesn't mean every time, there are emergencies, there are just other priorities that pop up that might be last minute, might be more time sensitive. But realizing that if we don't keep our commitments to our kids, that is like the easiest way to lose their trust. Because at the end of the day, we're here to build the trust between us and our kids. And if our kids can trust us, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, then guess what? Then they'll be trustworthy to come back to us. They'll want to come back to us in order to help us build the things that we're looking to build. I mean, these are the few areas that we have to recognize that if we can build that trust, if we can start to say, hey, you know what, you're going through X, Y, and Z, I want to be there for you, and you show up, then guess what? They are going to feel amazing. That's going to build a relationship so deep and much deeper. And it's going to really help to see where it is that we're going. And if we can do that, then I really think you could start to be on the right path. And whether it's commitments or whether it's any other type of trust building activities, if we could start to build that trust with them, then we're just pounding that emotional bank and we're just putting more and more into it. And the child is going to come to us. So even when things are quote unquote not so great, or, they might feel uncomfortable coming over to you because maybe they didn't do something so great, they know, they trust you that you're not just going to lash out at them. You're not just going to like ground them, whatever it is. Then guess what? They're going to be able to have that, because at the end of the day, all these techniques, these fear techniques that parents use, it's all in order to teach them a lesson. But let's say you could teach them that lesson without necessarily grounding them. Doesn't mean there can't be repercussions, but let's say you can actually get the point across and they know when they messed up. So that's probably a lot better, and it's going to be healthier for them. Because as adults also, we mess up sometimes, and we know when we mess up. And sometimes we have the guilt and the shame of messing up. And we have to realize, I need to be able to continue, and I need to learn from this and move forward. And if we could learn from it and hopefully teach our kids how to learn from these mistakes that we make, then guess what? Then we'll be better off, and we don't have to have the scars of not having our support team around us. Because whether you're working as a high performer, or you're working as somebody who's just getting started, building that team around you, that circle of influence around you and all the people that are going to be helping you and supporting you, is going to be the biggest part of your success. And the people who are the most successful have that team of people that they can trust, they can rely on. And we have to all build that. And as parents, we are that like number one and number two of our children. We are there to help support them. We are there looking at them, and they're looking at us as that support. And it's, it's like, you have a kid who has like a sports game, and their parent comes and they see their parent, come in, and like, you don't even have to say hi. There's just like this energy and this feeling of like, all right, I'm good. Like my mom's here, my dad's here. And we can start to really see that. And I think it's just something important that we need to constantly be building. The second idea is we need to listen to what they're saying, but we also need to listen to what they're not saying. You see, so many times a kid will come in and they'll say something about school. How was school? School's okay today. Okay, but what does that really mean? Maybe it wasn't just an okay day, or maybe it's like they got bullied around school, or maybe they got pushed around, or maybe they didn't do well on a test, or maybe they put themselves out there, they're trying to speak to somebody and they got rejected, or whatever it is. There could be so many things that are going on in their lives. And as parents, we need to understand our kids. We need to really see what it is and how is it that they work. If we could see how it is that they work, then guess what? Then we'll be able to really understand where it is that they're coming from. And we have to realize that most times parents are coming to a situation and they're either evaluating what's going on or they're advising what they should do. And as a teen, the last thing you want is your parents to be like telling you what to do. So when a kid comes and says, hey, what's going on? I know X, Y, and Z happened. For you to now go give your opinion on the situation is like, we shouldn't be doing that. And I think with all relationships, we shouldn't necessarily be doing that. And it's funny because I have, one of my brothers I speak to pretty often. And one of the things if I'm going through something, I'll always tell him before the call, like, this is the time where I want your opinion, or this time I just need you to listen. And he does the same thing to me. And it's something that I think is so powerful because I know what I need to be doing. Because as a guy, my job is to try to find answers. As guys, we just love to try to figure out what we could do and give advice. And I think women are better at this, that they could just understand and hear better. They don't necessarily have to be giving their opinion all the time. But sometimes people want the opinion. And I think if you could clarify that and know that, then I think it could be really helpful. But with teens, I don't know if they're at that level where they can start to tell you, hey, dad, I just need you to listen for a second. Or, you know what, I'd really love to get your opinion on this. And by doing that, then we can actually give our opinion and open up and we're allowed to do it. Just like in sales, like you would get permission to sell something. If you start selling to somebody and they don't want it, it's like the number one code you don't want to break. But if you get permission to sell, then like you have the ability and they're allowing you to do it. So same thing with our kids. We want the permission to be able to speak to our children. If you can start to speak to them and recognize all these different pieces, then guess what? Then you can start to have that relationship with them. And if you can just listen to what they're saying and actually hear it, then it'll be able to really start to build that trust a lot deeper and to really make sure that they're being heard. Because so many times the kid just wants to be heard. They just want to be understood what's going on in their life. And all sometimes they need to do is just get it off their chest. They just need to speak it out. And if they could speak it out, then guess what? They're going to be able to start to build that. And I think it's really something that's very important that a lot of parents have a hard time doing. The next idea is trying not to pry. And what I mean by this is that we shouldn't try to pull out of our kids, what's going on. Like if we know our kid's upset or we know our kid, is down or something, we shouldn't be the ones who are trying to pull out about what is going on, because a lot of times kids just need time. They need the time to think about it. And sometimes, as a parent, if we know our kid's going through something, we can just tell them and remind them, hey, like I'm here whenever you need to speak. And you can remind them again the next day and the next day and the next day. Because one day, guess what? They're going to come over, they're going to start speaking. But, big but, if you have your kid finally come to speak to you, you better listen. Because the first thing you say out of your mouth that is starting to judge them or starting to feel like you're advising them or telling them what to do or just evaluating what's going on, guess what? They're going to shut down and you're going to have to build that back up again. And as a teen, it is so difficult because there's so much going on socially. There's schoolwork, the pressures of there's a lot going on. They're growing, their hormones are just going everywhere, and you have to realize that they are coming in a certain place that they want to have that connection, but we can't be the ones to open it up. We have to have the ability. The door's open. You could come in whenever you want, and if you want to speak, I'm here. Whenever you need that support, I'm here. And one of the things that I think I take from my mom is that she only told us this as we got older in life. But she said whenever us kids came into her room at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, because like we wanted to come and speak, and she like never like told us to leave. She never like told us to go to sleep, and she never did any of these things. And she said the reason why is because she wanted to have that relationship. And if her kids are coming to speak to her, then they need her. And even if it wasn't like anything so intense, but it was just like, I just want to like tell you something or something funny or a funny joke, whatever it is, she always took that as, what, my kid needs me right now. And I'm going to give it to them. And even when she was exhausted and even in all these things, then sometimes she might have overdone it. But at the same time, she realizes, my kids need me. I need to be there for them. And I think if we could be there for our children, I think that can be something that can be extremely beneficial for them. And to say, what, I'm here for you. And then when they do open up, we're not going to be the one who are going to start to pry what is going on over there. And the last idea I really think is important is that we should try to wear their glasses. And what I mean by that is that if we start to take their glasses and put them on our own face, then we'll be able to see what they're going through. And as adults, we sometimes forget what it was like because we think about our older days. We think about the kids who are more aggressive in our class and this and that. And like you think about it as a memory. But to like think about it like every single day going through certain things, it's tough. It's like, oh, you need to study for like your exams. Like that's tough. There's like a lot going on there. You need to be, focused. You need to be working socially. You want to fit in. Like there's so much going on that if we can start to recognize where they're coming from, then I think it'll just give them so much more comfort because I think kids pick up on that stuff. And if we come out and say, hey, what, oh, how's that thing going that they mentioned like a week or two ago? And they're like, oh, you remember that, Dad? Like, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, things are X, Y, and Z. Then I think it could come from a place that they see that we care about them and we want to be able to help them. And it's a balance because we don't want to be too, we don't want to be too involved in what's going on in terms of like constantly asking these questions. But at the same time, we do want to be able to have that relationship. We do want to be able to get out there and to really speak to them. And I think if we could do those things, then I really think we can see the success of the relationships to cultivate. We can continue to build that emotional bank, and we can start to really see that things blossom into beautiful, beautiful relationships. So if we could keep those commitments and build that trust, if we could just listen to what they're saying, and if we could just not pry and try to pull out things, and we could just put on their glasses, I really think those ideas will really be able to help build these relationships with our children. Because at the end of the day, they want the relationship, we want the relationship. It's just not normal. Like, the kids are going through so much that we have to be able to hear them and listen to them. And once we do that, then guess what? Then we'll be able to really see what's going on. So these are all different ideas. Let me know your comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And if anybody is struggling, if anybody needs help, if their team needs help, feel free to reach out. I'll love to be able to help out, see if we can work with you guys. Alrighty, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.